Vans booked. School places confirmed. Harry and Meghan are reportedly moving back to Britain permanently, sometime this month. And on Thursday night, one woman who'd apparently been sitting on a calendar for over a week finally said out loud what she thinks this actually is.
Lady Colin Campbell, what on earth is going on? Just weeks after you revealed to the world this close, shall we say, friendship that Prince Harry had developed with a certain young lady in Montecito, they claim to be packing their bags.
This whole situation is very interesting because once Meghan and those children are back in the United Kingdom, that means that the marital home is in the United Kingdom. That means that Harry is in a far stronger position in terms of any future place where, in the event of a permanent separation.
Lady Colin Campbell says he's not coming home. She says he's running. Before we get into what he's supposedly running from, look at how the country he chose over this one sent him off. The New York Post put it on the front page. Our long national nightmare is over. Harry and Meghan returning to the UK after failing to take the colonies. One American comedian went further still. We finally found something deportation-related that every American can agree on. That's the send-off. No farewell tour, no thank you note, a shrug and a street party. And over here, honestly, nobody's even pretending otherwise anymore.
They really hate each other now, and they cannot hide it anymore.
She was the villain.
How was she dangerous?
Because of the need for her to rehabilitate.
Neil Sean summed up the entire 6-year American experiment in 2 words on live television: broke and busted. Tom Bauer, who's spent years studying this particular couple, says Harry lives inside a fantasy world entirely of his own making, and called him a blunderbuss for good measure. His prediction is that the Sussex collapse becomes the defining story of this whole saga, and there's reportedly only one direction that story goes from here.
He took Meghan and the kids. They came over privately to see the king a few weeks ago. When she said, "I'll never set foot in this country again," and when she said the royal family is racist, and when she slagged off almost every bit of the institution, why does she still want her daughter and son to be a prince and princess then? Part of a racist institution.
Angela Levin called them horrendous, called it ruthless, called it flatly a war, and said they've been lying throughout. Robert Jobson's landed on a name for the whole thing. We had Megxit. This, apparently, is Regrexit. And his math on whether Harry would grab even a minor royal role if one got offered is brutally simple. He'd take it, Jobson said, because it beats selling jam. I'll go one further than any of them said directly. I wouldn't have either of them back in this country at all, not after 6 years of telling the entire world we're racist, only to suddenly need a house here.
Harry is only coming back because he's got nothing to do in California. He's coming back because he's trying desperately to somehow rebuild a life here. It isn't going to work. Not only has he got nowhere to live, but these charities, the World Child, it's all that's piffling. It's nothing in terms of the real charities. And in Invictus, he's got no importance. He can do everything on the telephone or on the Zoom. He doesn't need to be back. No, this is Harry desperately trying to find and build a new life in Britain.
So that's the room these two are apparently walking straight into. Nobody's really debating whether they should come back. The actual argument is over why. Which brings us to Lady C specifically. Her account runs like this. She says she was fed information starting on the 12th of August and sat on it deliberately, with the final update landing the morning she went on air. On the 11th, she claimed she was told there'd been a meeting with federal authorities in America reviewing paperwork Harry reportedly submitted around 2021 for his US entry. Her specific words, a strong belief among federal officials that Harry lied on that paperwork.
Meghan's jam failed to sell out. Her season 2 of her cooking show was an absolute disaster. And this man, I think, will be asking Dad for a little bit more money very, very quickly. I only see bad things on the horizon. And I think also he's trying to get back in with the king because he knows he'll never be able to get back in with William.
Then the sentence the entire week seems to hinge on, if they didn't jump, he was going to be pushed, and they couldn't afford the embarrassment of a possible arrest. Before anyone dismisses this as simply one commentator talking, she sat on it for the better part of 8 days before saying a word publicly, and she came with specific dates attached. This is her claim, made on her own program, in her own words. No document named, no official identified, nobody's actually been charged with anything. Let's look at her own timeline honestly. Nothing at all reportedly happening on the 10th, a meeting with federal officers on the 11th, a family decision following shortly after. and the whole story landing in 2 national newspapers by the 20th, 8 or 9 days total, by her own account. Here's the problem with it, and I'd rather point it out myself than let someone else find it first. On that exact same broadcast, that same night, the host mentioned that Tom Sykes has reportedly written a chapter claiming Harry had been planning this specific move for months beforehand.
They have been fed information starting on the 12th of August, which I have kept stum about because I felt it was irresponsible of me to do anything in terms of revealing what was going on. Harry and Meghan, it's all cock and bull. They're not moving back to the United Kingdom because they want to.
Sykes says a friend told him back in spring that Harry was already actively house hunting. Months of careful planning and 8 days of sudden panic simply can't both be true simultaneously. So which is it? That contradiction sits right at the center of this entire story. Whatever you make of the federal claim specifically, 3 other people looked at this same situation on Thursday from completely different angles. A broadcaster, a tax specialist, and the man who used to be responsible for keeping Harry physically safe. Not one of them believed the official explanation being offered.
They're moving back to the United Kingdom because Harry is endangered as a result of the feds. On the 11th of August, there was a meeting with the feds where they were inquiring into paperwork that he submitted. I mean, I don't have my notes in front of me, but I think it was in 2021, about his visa entry, and that there is a strong belief by the feds that Harry lied on his paperwork to be able to gain admission to the United States as, I suppose you could say, semi-permanent resident.
This particular story arrived with the price tag still visibly attached, and all 4 of these separate voices ended up staring at the exact same object in the end: a calendar. Start with the broadcaster. The bluntest verdict of the entire day came on American television, delivered in under 3 minutes by someone who's covered this family for years. Neil Sean skipped the diplomatic version entirely. They can frame it however they like, he said. The bottom line is they're broke and busted. It didn't work out. The whole idea never quite came together. Then he did something nobody else managed that day. He pinpointed the exact moment things actually turned. The Daily Mail case, the one Harry brought and ultimately lost.
When you're writing a book, you're always having this struggle of what are you going to hold and what are you going to include. And I had a fairly lengthy chapter, which is now going to need to be rewritten, about how a friend of Harry's telling me that, he was going to go house hunting, that he was looking, and that person said to me that he was looking in the Cotswolds near Highgrove, where, of course, he grew up, where he knows everybody, where he knows the pubs, where he knows the secret shortcuts and the footpaths and all those kinds of things, and still has a kind of network of people there.
Sean's read is that Harry truly believed he'd win that case, that he'd been told it would solve everything financially, that there was supposedly enormous money waiting on the other side of a verdict. When that didn't happen, according to Sean, that's when the real decision got made. Now place that next to a detail Jobson dropped separately on Thursday. The actual bill for that lost case, the real costs Harry now owes, was reportedly expected to land publicly the very next morning. So the homecoming announcement went out Wednesday night. The bill landed Friday. That's remarkably convenient timing if it's purely coincidental.
Basically, they can frame it any way they want, right, Hainsley? The bottom line is they're back, broke, and busted. It didn't work. The idea hasn't come along. And the really turning point that a lot of people should look at in this long-going narrative, and you do not believe that this only happened on Sunday. You do not organize schools and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. This has been going on for a long time, right? I mean, as a mom, it's not easy, right? So this has been going on a long time.
Get your version of events into headlines before the far less flattering version does, and you trade a story about mounting debt for a warmer story about finally coming home. That's not spontaneous emotion. That's a press operation working against a hard deadline. Meanwhile, consider the actual empire he's supposedly leaving behind. On the As Ever website that same week, you could purchase 2 candles and a box of matches for $128. You couldn't invent that detail if you tried. Tom Bauer's summary was short and blunt. They're pretty well burnt out in California, he said, and they'll run out of their own money before too much longer regardless of what happens next.
They run out of
ideas. They can't do any more work for Netflix or Spotify or any of the main streamers. And their finances are basically in jeopardy over the long term. Well, I think you can summarize it in 2 words: desperation and failure.
Jobson put his finger on the part that should sting hardest of all. They never actually made their money through original ideas of their own. They made it by selling out the royal family itself piece by piece. 6 years, one single product, and that product was their own relatives. The shelf's properly bare now, and even people who've supported them throughout can't quite work out what's happening. Their remaining fan base spent Thursday visibly confused, trying to reconcile how the 2 people who spent years calling this country racist, cruel, and unlivable are suddenly desperate to secure housing here.
Turning point for this really happened with Associated News Limited. This was, of course, the big Daily Mail case that Harry believed he was going to win. This, he was told, was going to solve everything. He was the dragon slayer. He was going to have so much money. When that didn't work out, that was the final decision. What I can tell you first, though, Ainsley, is you will notice it's all about Harry returning back. Meghan remains very silent, and I've been told from an excellent source, rather, shall we say, concerned about not only a welcome over here in the United Kingdom, and I think that's a bit harsh, but you have to say everything she's done has actually turned to dust.
The line nobody in the mainstream press will ever print about their own industry came from Daisy McAndrew instead. There were champagne corks popping up and down Fleet Street, she said. Them coming back makes an enormous amount of people money. Everyone profits from these 2. Everyone except these 2 themselves, apparently. But actually broke people tend to leave in a hurry. These 2 reportedly waited. And what they were waiting for, according to multiple accounts, was a specific date. Here's where things get genuinely more interesting than any royal commentator managed to explain on Thursday, because the most damaging analysis of the entire day didn't come from a royal expert at all.
I got a text from a friend of mine in Montecito, and I'm trying to cover the name, but he says, "And we say bye-bye." And it's the headline of them. Everyone in Montecito is so happy to see them go, and these people are rich, honey. They are rich. Okay, not Meghan Markle, selling wickless candles. Bye-bye. Everybody's happy to see them go in Montecito.
I can't believe you're on text terms with Gwyneth Paltrow.
It came from an accountant. Nimish Shah runs a London tax firm called Blick Rothenberg. He doesn't deal in royal gossip professionally. He deals in tax law. And when he looked closely at these specific dates, he reached for one particular word: immaculate. His full quote read something like this: "It's good to see Harry and Meghan achieve 6 complete tax years of non-UK residency, satisfying the temporary non-resident rules around capital gains tax. They've clearly received excellent tax advice, and the timing of this move back is immaculate." That sentence carries an enormous amount of weight once you actually unpack it properly. Here's the mechanism. British tax law has a specific rule designed to stop wealthy people leaving the country, cashing out significant assets while abroad, then simply strolling back in shortly afterward. Leave and return within 5 years, and the tax authority treats you as though you'd never left at all for capital gains purposes. Stay away 6 complete tax years instead, and you're entirely clear.
I'm interested in, though, what you think or how you think these grifters are going to make a living. I mean, how are they going to make money in the UK apart from a book? Round-the-clock security, as we know, is massively expensive. They're not apparently selling the Montecito mansion for 15 million. So, the cynics are going to go, oh, my God, are the royal family / taxpayer paying for this? I hope not. I can't imagine William allowing that.
6 complete tax years. Hold that specific number in your head for a second. They reportedly left in March 2020. The relevant tax year closed on the 5th of April just weeks later, which is what actually started the clock running. Count forward from there, and the 6th complete tax year finished this past April. Every single one completed in full, without a single month wasted along the way. And the family lands back on British soil in August 2026, several months into what would be the 7th tax year. 6 years to the exact month.
I was informed of this, and I would imagine, and I was actually also invited to approach people in the United Kingdom for them to raise questions which would, in fact, assure the feds of having further backup as to the possibility and the feasibility of, in fact, arresting Harry and depriving. And I've been receiving lots of information about this starting on the 12th of August.
Lady C reportedly reached the same conclusion independently. from a completely different source, texted to her the night before by someone with no connection whatsoever to royal circles. Her verdict on it was crueler than any straightforward insult could have been, precisely because it wasn't meant as one at all. It functioned more like a backhanded compliment. "You can't really fault them for being that clever," she said. In a strange sort of way, you almost have to admire the calculation involved. She's reportedly coined a specific term for this exact pattern too, something close to a signature move, where someone creates a difficult situation, then at the very last possible hour dodges the consequences entirely through some maneuver nobody quite saw coming. None of that technically breaks any rule, and that's precisely what makes it land so uncomfortably. It's legal. It's ordinary tax planning, technically available to any sufficiently wealthy family with a competent accountant. That's the whole point, though. A man who simply misses his father books a flight whenever the feeling strikes him.
So it's amazing that someone else is coming up with it as well, because this friend of mine, who I think you've met him,
Yes, I have.
And
Good man.
he's a genius, and he made the point. They are free and clear they are not liable to tax on any of their American earnings for the previous 6 years. Say what you will, that's clever thinking. That's clever moving. And I mean, you can't really knock them for being so clever. I think in a funny sort of way, you have to admire them for being so clever.
This particular family reportedly waited specifically for a tax year to close first. The calendar told them precisely when to move, not any sudden emotional pull toward home. Now consider what the actual relocation reportedly buys them beyond tax efficiency. 6 years, a genuine fortune spent on lawyers, court case after court case after court case, and Harry never actually secured the security arrangement he wanted throughout any of it. Tom Sykes went and read through the actual court filings, and what's contained in them isn't exactly a closely guarded secret. The stated reason they don't currently qualify for automatic protection is that they don't fall into the specific category of people who receive it, and one of the conditions keeping them outside that category is that they don't currently reside in the United Kingdom.
It's called the temporary non-residence rule, and it means that if you leave the UK and come back within 5 years, you never really left. But if you stay out for more than 5 years, which in practice means 6 complete calendar years, you're golden. Now look at the Sussex calendar. They left in March 2020, just before the tax year ended on the 5th of April. They have now been non-resident for, surprise, the requisite 6 full tax years from 2020-21 to 25-26 and returning in August 26, a few months into the 7th. If income was cleverly structured as shares, that money is now safely beyond HMRC's 24% rate of capital gains tax reach. So, Lady C, it does make some financial sense.
Now listen carefully to what reportedly follows from that. If they establish UK residency, they check one required box. And if Charles offers Harry even a truly minor role connected to some minor charity, they become working royals again in a technical sense, which would reportedly make them eligible for state-funded security once more. That's the entire mechanism, apparently. One UK address, one small charitable role, 2 boxes checked, and what comes out the other end is roughly $3 million annually in private security costs simply disappearing, replaced by protection that follows the person rather than a specific address, holiday, work trip, home, anywhere at all. Jobson's own estimate runs higher still. He puts the potential savings at $4 million off Harry's security bill, then adds a line that should honestly give anyone pause. Meghan might not automatically be included in that arrangement. And if you think that door isn't already propped open deliberately, read The Sun's own reporting carefully. The first line reads beautifully, no public money, no official royal duties. The second line, sourced to their own camp, tells a different story. If there are discussions about any future role for him, that would need to happen directly between him and his father.
Harry and Meghan have understood that if they didn't jump, he was going to be pushed. And they could not afford the embarrassment of him possibly being arrested. While now, if he's no longer living in America, I think they are hoping that the whole thing will go away.
That's the door, sitting quietly in paragraph 2. Jobson's watched this specific maneuver play out before, and he described it about as well as anyone could. The king gave Harry an inch, he said, and Harry's reportedly taken about 50 yards with it. 6 years ago, these two described living in genuine fear for their own safety. Last year alone, it was reportedly acid attacks, knife attacks, a press machine whipping up hatred, an entire country supposedly too dangerous for their children. As Sykes put it, now, apparently, it's all fine. Fine for them anyway. Somebody should mention that to the man who used to keep them alive.
But all of a sudden, shit just got real, Tom. Holy mackerel.
Yeah, it's a huge development, isn't it? I mean, if you look at the court papers that were, because this has been in court, right, multiple times about the security. So a lot of the documentation about why they don't have security is very far from being a state secret. It's all over this paperwork. And one of the main reasons that they don't have security is because they are not in the bracket of people who are protected. They are not in the cohort of people who are protected.
He was reportedly asked to appear on air at midnight and turned the invitation down, not out of any particular loyalty to anyone specifically, but because he was reportedly too visibly stunned to speak coherently about it yet. Dai Davies ran the Royal Protection Command for years, not a pundit chasing views, not a biographer with a book to promote, the actual person who once ran that entire operation. He was shocked and amazed, in his own words, after 6 straight years of Harry insisting publicly that this country wasn't safe for his family. He called it a complete reversal and asked plainly what exactly is going on here. Then he turned toward the palace itself. Someone, he said, has apparently already been quietly reviewing the entire security structure, homes, schools, all of it. And his verdict on the official line, that nobody there knew anything until Sunday, arrived in 3 words. It beggars belief. Then he offered a number that stuck with me for the rest of the day.
Sources say, clearly this is Harry and Meghan sources, this is Liam Maguire, say if there are discussions on any future role for him, it would need to take place between him and his father. So the translation there is that they're already dropping the hints that Harry is going to be asking his father for a royal role.
There are reportedly over 1,000 fixated individuals tracked across this country, with roughly 20% assessed as posing an actual threat. 1,000 people. He'd also seen the morning's polling showing something close to 85% of the country opposed to this return, and he didn't frame that as simple public opinion. He framed it as an actual security consideration. There could be all manner of new threats, he said, that now need proper assessment purely as a consequence of this decision. Sit with that for a second. Their own declining popularity has apparently become an active security cost, and the bill for it lands on people who never asked for any of this in the first place. The actual decision reportedly sits with a small group of officials, mostly men by his account, working from available intelligence and formal risk assessment. And the cost to everyone else, again in his own words, runs into many millions.
That is ludicrous, and we knew that was just, well, in my view, it was always just a money play, right? They don't want to have the $3 million security bill if they get the government-funded security, so Harry and Meghan would get it even if they were at their home in Montecito. And all of a sudden, $3 million a year on private security costs saved in a flash.
The technical security work required for any home is substantial, he said, and it simply can't be arranged overnight regardless of anyone's preferred timeline. Meanwhile, the broader security queue apparently isn't moving quickly, and Daisy McAndrew explained why in a detail nobody else had mentioned. The Home Office review is reportedly held up partly because too many living former prime ministers already require round-the-clock protection of their own. That's apparently who Harry's actually queuing behind: former heads of government and a man who voluntarily quit his own role.
I was not entirely utterly surprised it's happened, but I'm very surprised at the speed with which it has happened, that it's happened so quickly.
The Home Secretary hasn't shifted position at all either, and Harry's official security status remains formally unchanged. Davies saved his sharpest criticism for whoever's actually advising this couple. Whoever's advising them, he said, needs to seriously rethink their entire structure and their basic professionalism. This is nonsensical, in his own words. So that's genuinely the bill being run up here.
Sources say he naturally welcomes the opportunity to see more of the Sussex family in a personal and private capacity, but the King is clear that there will be no alteration to the Duke and Duchess's role and status as private individuals and non-working royals in keeping with their clearly expressed wishes and agreement over past years. There is no half-in, half-out option. Now, this is the King being weak. I'm just going to say it because the mainstream media will not say it. He says, in keeping with their clearly expressed wishes and agreements over past years. Yeah, they've changed their mind. They've changed their mind, Richard, because they realise they're not making the money.
Now consider the story that was actually being sold right up until it wasn't. Hannah Furness is the royal editor at the Telegraph, the paper that ran this story. It wasn't that long ago, she said, that sources inside Harry's camp were telling reporters he'd never been happier, learning to surf, loving his California life completely, with no interest whatsoever in looking backward toward Britain. Nothing here that he particularly missed, according to that earlier briefing. Learning to surf. Then, apparently quite recently, that exact same camp started briefing something entirely different to the press.
I'm just going to let you go. What a bunch of hypocritical, non-contritional pain in the asses these two are. Sorry, I can't have it.
They are horrendous, actually. And unfortunately, they've come with a terrible attitude because they're going to make things that are easy for them, see the king now and then twist it. Meghan's going to make her book out of it, and Harry is going to make money out of it. It's just too awful.
Angela Levin compressed the whole arc into a single sentence. A man who walked away from his family, called them awful, insisted he'd never see them again, then suddenly reverses course entirely. Furness herself is careful, not prone to theory spinning, which is exactly why her next comment carries weight.
Well, this is a huge thing, isn't it? That is actually a man who walked away from his family and the great thing of this country and decided that they were awful, was very rude about them, and they would never go and see them again. And then suddenly, whoosh, in no time, well, it's obviously 6 years, but no time from now that he's been talking to his father, he's decided what he's going to do. I think it's going to be dangerous, because why would he need to do it so quickly? Why?
There may be financial factors involved, she said. There may be visa considerations. There may be things that simply haven't been part of this conversation yet. And then, flatly, nothing about this makes complete sense. That's the actual royal editor of the paper that broke this exact story, telling her own audience that the stated reasoning doesn't fully add up. She doesn't buy the palace's Sunday timeline either. She'd reportedly be very surprised if Charles and his team hadn't already known something was developing beforehand. They'd had tea together back in July, after all. The idea that this never came up in conversation, in her own words, simply doesn't wash. And the broader track record isn't really a matter of opinion at this point.
And I'm also amazed by the palace's barefaced insistence that the king didn't know till Sunday. Yeah, sure. Pull the other one, mate. It's got bells on. And the idea that the king just knew about this on Sunday is absolutely ridiculous. But the other point to say about this is that it's really hard to understand anything that's happened in the British royal family over the last couple of years.
Sykes walked through it methodically. The press office previously swore the timing had nothing to do with a meeting the Sussex side had apparently already briefed elsewhere. The widely reported Kardashian consent claim that reportedly never existed, and the wedding supposedly held in the back garden 3 days early, which the Archbishop of Canterbury pointed out would have technically constituted a serious legal offense if true. So what's that same operation reportedly briefing now? Page 6 got the current version. They want to be closer to the king, and they want the children building real relationships with their cousins.
Let's remember, Harry and Meghan are very adept at propaganda and putting forth their latest version of whatever it is. I think we need to remember that it's not only William and Catherine who want to have little or nothing to do with Harry and Meghan, especially Meghan. It's also the Queen. The King himself has wanted to have very limited contact with them, and more so with his son than with his daughter-in-law. But he's not exactly been embracing either Harry or Meghan.
Lady C took roughly 8 seconds on air to dismantle that framing entirely. Jobson has the actual numbers. 3 meetings between Harry and his father across 6 years. 2 visits with his own grandchildren, total. And now those same children have apparently become the stated reason for everything. Jobson reached for a harsher word to describe how they got here. Treachery. Months of secret filming, reportedly conducted behind both the King's and William's backs, sold afterward for a substantial sum. Ailsa Anderson, former press secretary to the late Queen, says the July meeting wasn't actually any kind of reunion in the meaningful sense. No photographs released. No briefing beyond simply confirming that a meeting had taken place at all. They tested the waters, she said. 2 separate newspapers ran the story within the same hour, both calling it a world exclusive. Interesting, isn't it, how that keeps happening? Someone, somewhere, distributed that story deliberately.
Think of the uncles and aunts. Exactly what family are the Sussexes speaking about? Lord Spencer doesn't have a family. My children run across his children socially all the time. They don't speak to their father. I mean, give me a break. What family? And also, his children, most of them, are not of an age for Harry and Meghan to be associating with playing happy families on behalf of Harry's two children. So where's the family? What family are we speaking about?
So let's actually count everything up. 5 separate people, 5 entirely different programs, all within one Thursday afternoon. Lady Colin Campbell says he's fleeing a federal inquiry. A veteran broadcaster says they're simply broke and finished. A tax specialist says the timing reads as immaculate, deliberate planning. The former head of royal protection says the whole thing beggars belief. And the actual royal editor of the paper that broke the story says none of it fully makes sense to her either. 4 distinctly different explanations, and 3 of them are pointing toward the exact same calendar month regardless of the specific reasoning offered. The one thing not a single person among them actually believed was the official reason the Sussexes themselves provided. Think about how truly unusual that is. 6 years of coverage, Oprah, Netflix, a memoir, a court case. And there was always at least some version you could reasonably argue either side of. He said, she said, pick whichever side felt right to you. Not this time, though. Nobody serious is actually debating whether the official explanation is true. Everybody effectively skipped past that question entirely on Wednesday night. The real argument now is over which specific version of the untruth actually applies here. That's what happens once your public statements stop carrying any real shelf life. 6 years of absolute, unwavering declarations delivered on camera. Then you suddenly need the exact opposite to be true, and you're apparently hoping everyone's simply forgotten what you said before. We didn't forget, though. We wrote all of it down. Every version, every date. Once your own critics can't even agree on which specific explanation to believe, you've stopped functioning as a scandal and become something closer to a genuine puzzle. And puzzles, as it turns out, don't sell jam nearly as effectively as a clean narrative does. A man who simply misses his father books a flight whenever he feels like it. This particular family reportedly waited for a full tax year to close first, 6 complete years to the exact month, then took roughly a fortnight to actually pack. That's not really a homecoming in any emotional sense of the word. That reads considerably more like a completion date on a contract. Lady C gets the closing word here, and she's arguably earned it. The way this family handles situations like this, she said, is to let go and let God. Give people enough rope to hang themselves with eventually, and haven't they done exactly that? Here they are, apparently returning with considerably less fanfare than they left with. No apology issued, no security guarantee secured, not one of the specific demands they once swore they'd never come back without having met. 6 years ago, they told the entire world precisely why they were leaving. In a book, on Netflix, from a sofa in California with cameras rolling throughout. Not once in all that time have they actually told us why they're coming back now. 9 separate people took a swing at answering that question on Thursday alone, and not a single one of them managed to get a straight answer directly from the source. They're reportedly landing before this month ends, and the first photograph of that family stepping onto British soil is already worth considerably more than anything they managed to sell across 6 years in America combined. Nobody, mind you, actually asked the rest of us whether we wanted this particular show to come back at all. Here's a thought worth sitting with as we wrap up tonight. Every theory we walked through, the tax timing, the security math, the federal claim, the collapsing brand, assumes this is fundamentally a financial story wearing a family reunion as its costume. Maybe that's exactly right. Or maybe, worth genuinely considering, the simplest explanation quietly gets lost underneath 6 competing theories, and nobody circles back to check whether it was actually true the whole time. I don't know which this is. Neither, really, does anyone you heard from today. What I do know is this. Within about 18 months, we'll likely have our answer, because families that move for real reasons tend to stay, and families that move for a calendar tend to find their way back out just as quietly as they came in. Set a reminder. Come back and check.